And we're live. What's up, guys? Well, wait till some people come up in here. We got the Virginia Tech ODU game closing out right now.
Yep. I'm distracted. I'm sorry.
Nah, man, it's good. That's a crazy, another crazy day in college football. If we got a top 25 team losing to ODU.
ODU's 0-3. I didn't even know that till just.
I didn't even. They're 0-3. Lord, well, that makes it worse.
According to CBS Sports' graphic.
That makes it worse. So now, how does that look for Florida State now?
Yeah,
Florida State loses to Virginia Tech convincingly, who then turns and loses to Old Dominion.
Yeah, and Old Dominion just busted one, about 50 yards. So they're gonna win by double digits.
But technically, ODU better than Florida State right now.
Yeah, technically speaking. The ACC itself is it's just subpar. A lot of the teams we thought with a break or two could be really good. They've all kind of fallen on the short side of that. Miami,
and then there was
Miami, Florida State, Virginia Tech. Those were three teams that people wouldn't have been shocked to see them as ranked teams. And the fourth one, kind of a dark horse that people love, was Boston College. They faltered to another 0-3 team, Purdue.
They lose to Purdue today.
So not a great day for the ACC in general.
Nope.
But it's always a kind of a wacky conference, and this year it might be the wackiest in just how big the gap between Clemson and everybody else is. Louisville looks down, like we said. Florida State, BC, Wake. A lot of people pick them as an upset candidate for Notre Dame today. They got blown out. So really, the ACC today took it on the chin in a lot of ways, and this year through 4 weeks has been very subpar for programs not named Clemson.
Yeah, it's been a weird year for a couple of these big conferences. I mean, God, the Big Ten keeps looking weirder and weirder as we go along through the year as well. But as far as like conferences underachieving, I feel like the ACC is definitely underachieving to the max right now.
The ACC's falling in the conference power rankings.
Yeah, because they had
probably 3 or 4 to begin
with
this year.
Now they're probably near the bottom.
Yeah, so I mean the ACC and the Big 12 are about to duke it out for basement. So
yeah. Well, even then, like you had a couple teams overachieving, like you said. You had Boston College overachieving, and now they lose to 0-3 Purdue, who was underachieving this year because everybody thought they were going to be really good this year. So we got some comments in here.
Alabama, forgot.
Bama played today.
Yeah, so that game was, all right. There's a lot to at least touch on. First of all, right off the bat, Tua's stat line was ridiculous. His poise was ridiculous. His progression was ridiculous. I don't know why the broadcast continued to go that way with the Tua Jalen thing. I thought that 2-3 weeks ago we were kind of over it, but they clearly were not. So that shame on them for that. But
I mean, they kept making it a point. Well, this is his 4th game. He can't. If he plays in any more games, he can't redshirt. Like I think we've been past that. I mean, I'm pretty he's here this year. I don't think there's a reason to keep beating that into the ground. I mean, they're just beating a dead horse when it comes to that. I feel like. Right.
Yeah, just anything beyond this year, we'll see. But yeah, for 2018, these are the guys. These are the guys you're going to roll in with. And you leave it there. You let this be its own story, and that's it. But the whole back and forth conversation, I don't think is relevant anymore. It's very clear. This is to his team. It's his offense. He's going to get the benefit of the doubt. He's going to play, well more than not against good teams. That we saw it against Ole Miss, which isn't maybe a good team, But as an SEC team, and we obviously saw it today against Texas A&M. For those curious, Tua's final numbers here: 22 of 30 for 387, 4 touchdowns, no picks. Little asterisk, the
3 touchdowns.
The little toss from my hand to the phone here.
That's like the
Henry
biggest.
Ruggs.
I hate that rule. Like when that rule came in a couple years ago, and they started making that a complete pass. Like I hate that. Like it's cheap, and it's a cheap and easy way to get your guy stats, and that's all it did. It boosted his passing numbers 57 yards and gave him another touchdown. So
right. I mean, it's like obviously eras change, right? So. The famous stat this week that if you listen to sports radio, you've probably heard that Ryan Fitzpatrick has like 16 more touchdowns in 44 less starts compared to Troy Aikman. Is he the better quarterback? No chance. But
what is that?
But that is that's evidence of eras shifting and how you have to kind of Tua's 387 today is kind of normal. That's what we expect of. Very good
solid game. Yeah.
Tua, if it's Haskins, if it's Will Grier, if it's Kyler Murray, these are the kind of numbers you expect on a normal game, not even a rivalry game or anything where a lot of eyes are on you. That is kind of an expected stat line because this era has lent itself towards that. But obviously, not taking anything away from Tua, he's processing things very quickly, comfortable. A couple of misfires, but you're not going to nitpick 22 of 30. At some point, the numbers have to kind of overwhelm some other things. I think he played extremely well. The offensive line, I thought, pass protected very well. I know there's some questions on the O-line, Kev, but it seemed like Bama wasn't emphasizing the running game. I don't think it was a big part of the game plan today. How did you view that?
Yeah, it didn't really seem that way. I know a lot of people, and there's already people talking about it in here about the offensive line played terrible. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that the run game is bad. It's just the run game is not being emphasized. I mean, it's the offense is. It's not a completely different offense than it ever was, but when you have someone like Tua, I mean, you're kind of gonna tweak it a little bit, and the run game isn't being prioritized like Bama fans are used to seeing. So I think that's why people are kind of questioning the run game aspect of it and the O-line's performance in the run game, but it's not necessarily that the run game is performing poorly. It's just that it's not being made a priority in the game plan. I mean, let's see here while I pull up the actual you have the rushing stats pulled up. How many carries did they actually have? I mean, it can't be that many.
28 total carries. So for reference,
28.
Yeah, and obviously in the second half with a big lead, a lot of those were very anticipated carries for both sides. Jalen Hurts carried the ball out when he came in. He handed the ball to Najee Harris a bunch when he came in. He ended up leading the team with 8 attempts for 43 yards. So this clearly, if you eliminate the kind of, hey, we're trying to run out the clock portion of the game, you're talking about in the teens in terms of design runs for Alabama. And that seems off compared to, like you said, what people are used to. But I think with the game plan, that's what Alabama looked at as a weakness. I think Mike Locksley and company looked at this Aggie defense and said, hey, there's experience in the front seven. That D-line is actually pretty darn good. With Dave Mack, Matabuke, Kiki, those guys played well. And sure, were there misses with that Alabama front? Nobody's saying they were perfect today or trailblazing in the run game. However, the sample size was much smaller than what we're used to. And conversely, I mean, heck, first play of the game, over-the-top touchdown. The passing game was working. The pass protection was good. The running backs helped out there. We saw some diverse play calling from Locksley, a lot of motion. Running backs lined up all over the football field. So again, if you're trying to script that and if you're trying to work that into your play calling, which remember, Mike Locksley hasn't had a bunch of play calls with these guys because all of these games have been so one-sided. So if you're trying to work that stuff in and you begin to get into the playbook a little bit for the first time maybe all year, those are some of the casualties of war in this game. The A&M front seven is a strength. That front line is a strength. The secondary not viewed so much as a strength. Alabama exploited it. Mike Locksley, Tua Tagovailoa exploited that, and the run game was a bit of a casualty of it. So I think you could have emphasized it more if you're Alabama. Absolutely. Could they have blocked a little bit better? Yes. But I don't think it's at the level of, hey, it's time to panic now. It's not like Alabama couldn't gain a yard, couldn't get a first down, couldn't get a push of any sorts. I think it was partially the game plan and really with running backs too. And this is something we haven't talked about because every game has been like this in terms of single-digit carries for most of the backs. Those guys got to get into a rhythm too. We talk about that with quarterbacks a lot. Running backs need a rhythm too. They need touches. If anything, they need a different type of rhythm than a quarterback. Quarterback hits one or two throws, he's good. A running back, it's completely different. You need to get that contact. You need to absorb it. You need to kind of get 2 or 3 in a row to really get rolling. And in this climate, how many of these Alabama running backs are going to get 2, 3, 4, 5 carries in a row like we saw with Derrick Henry, like we saw with Mark Ingram, like we saw with Richardson and Lacey and Yeldon? How many will ever get 4 or 5 carries in a row this year with this offense, with this quarterback, and with these receivers? I'm just not sure.
No, that hits it on the head. You got 4 guys that are definitely NFL receivers. You have an NFL quarterback. Not saying that the running backs aren't NFL quality running backs, but good Lord, the weapons they have on offense right now are just ridiculous.
It's just like you can't emphasize the running game and also highlight Tua and highlight all that they can do. You want to be balanced, but you can't force balance. It's 2018, man. Even when we played, Kev, football was like you're going to force that balance if you can. But the scores are lower. The gaps are smaller. Now it's wide open. So there is no team that will force a 50-50 ratio regardless of personnel. So when you throw in Bama's personnel, it just becomes less and less likely. And look, defenses, I don't know how you prepare for Bama. I've said that a bunch, but the default for facing Alabama, regardless of quarterback, and especially these last couple of years with Jalen Hurts leading the charge, you wanted to stack the box. You wanted to make the quarterback beat you down the field. So is there an adjustment period that these teams are going through in combating Alabama on that side? Could that be part of the reason why we saw such a pass-heavy game today? I think there's so many different factors, but you can't force that 50-50 balance. You got to go with the flow. I think, the third series of the game, Kev, we were on the phone. Third series of the game, Mike Locksley just started opening up, going off of the script, because at that point, usually the script.
At that point,
and you started to see at that point, it's on the fly. At that point, it's rhythm and feel. And from there, it was more open than otherwise, which meant more passing than running. And I thought it worked, and they kind of stayed with it.
Yeah, I think that once they got into that that part of the game, he got off his your script. And if you don't, for those who don't know what what we're talking about when we talk about that is, for the first 14 to 21 plays of a game, you have a script and you're going to run those plays because you want to see what is working and what is going to work moving forward in the game. So those first 14 to 21 plays, you're going to run them no matter what. And you're going to go in order because either A, you're trying to set something up, B, you want to see what's working. And that's just how it goes. So, you get to about the third drive of the game, your script's done, and now you're going off of feel. And when he started going off of feel and you started lining people up in different locations, they said Irv Smith lined up in 11 different spots today. You had running backs in the slot. You had running backs. You had a full backfield with 2 running backs and running triple option. You had orbit motions and everything out of Bama, which, we haven't really seen the diverse motion and the building block game yet, because offensively Loxley he runs a building block offense, which he builds and builds and builds off of all these things. So, they implemented the orbit motion today. Haven't seen orbit motion in any game yet so far, but I guarantee you next game you'll see orbit motion, and you'll see more than just the 1 or 2 plays they ran with it today.
Right. So that's part of it too. And it's, there's usually a greater plan at work. You want to set something up. The best offensive coordinator do it. Lane Kiffin was great at it, like most Bama fans can remember. But this is just a different style. It's a more, there's a lot of motion. There's a lot of widening with the looks. Doesn't mean you're playing wide. Doesn't mean it's bubble screen left, bubble screen right, like Willie Taggart does at FSU. But you're widening pre-snap.
Spreading the field.
Right. But you're still playing a vertical game. Yeah. I mean, it seemed like every other play, Tua was hitting a 9 route, hitting a 7 cut, hitting an 8 cut, and hitting the digs. I mean, everything was 10, 15, 20 yards down the field, even when you got the tight end involved. Like you mentioned, Irv Smith, Hale Henches with a couple of touchdown grabs. He had a few different positions as well. Backside draggers. He did a little bit of everything himself. So that continues to tell us a theme that we've talked about, Kev, is Loxley's calling the plays regardless of personnel. And that is the scariest thing for a defense, because going into the season, what do we think? If Tua was in, you're going to get this.
Yeah.
And if Jalen is in, you're going to get that.
I said it's going to be a 2. I said it was going to be a 2. It was going to look – the offense was going to look completely different based on who was in. And I was so wrong, because it looked –
we didn't know.
It looked exactly the same. It's looked exactly the same based on who was in. So I think, once again, Mike Loxley is the MVP of the offense so far. I want some content credit from Herb Street, because he said no one's talking about it. Well, I've talked about it for 3 weeks. I thought that Loxley has been the low-key offensive MVP for Alabama. So
yeah, this is a good point in the chat coming from Kamala 80, who says, I think we're still trying to get Tua as many reps as possible. Tua is still a new starting quarterback. Again, like we're so ahead of ourselves. We're like, no, Heisman Trophy, first-round pick, Jalen's transferring, national championship undefeated. We're so ahead of the conversation with Alabama.
Yeah.
That when it comes to snap count and reps and meaningful reps, which you could still argue that Tua doesn't have a ton in this season so far. His numbers compared to all of the other top passers that we named, Greer, Murray, Herbert, all these guys, way down comparatively. He's taken less snaps, independent of the Jalen thing. He's taken less snaps because the leads have been so big. So that could be a part of it as well. Perhaps Loxley had an extended script or something where he's like, look, we got to get Tua in these situations. We got to start to show these things. Like you talked about building blocks. Let's show the orbit motion. Let's show the triple option look. Let's get the tight ends a little bit more vertical in this game. Maybe you need to show that with Tua in the game to build on it moving forward when you play better defenses and better opponents. So I think a lot of these things go into the conversation. Not an excuse. Look, the running game was not great today, but I do think that the reasons why we're multi-layered and much deeper than, oh, hey, the O-line didn't get a push and everything was up the middle, so Bama abandoned it. I just think it was much deeper than that, and I look forward to hear what Nick and Mike and those guys have to say. Well, Nick's not going to let Mike speak to the media, but what Nick would have to say about that decision that I'm sure he is pretty involved in. It's not one of those where he's truly giving everything away to the OC because it's been so touch and go with the quarterbacks, especially to him. I mean, they keep stressing this Tua Jalen relationship and how it has impacted Nick Saban. Like, look, at the end of the day, politic all you want, is football. The best guy's going to play. Exactly. And Tua, and that's it. That's it. Everything else, the rest of the year, like I'm over it. I can't imagine being a Bama fan, reading it every day or anything like that. It would stress me out. So hopefully people get that message. But unfortunately for both Jalen and Tua, I don't think it's going to go well.
The media is not going to let it go. And it's, it's one of those situations where the media is not going to let it go, and it's sad for both guys because, there's no reason for the media to every time Tua scores a touchdown to show Jalen on the sideline, and every time Jalen scores a touchdown, show Tua celebrating for him. There's no reason for that. It's not it's unnecessary, and the media has definitely blown it out of proportion. But one of the things I wanted to talk about also, along with Tua's performance, was the lack of performance by the Alabama linebacking core.
I mean, that concern level's got to go up, right?
I would imagine so. I mean, we've had multiple people in our live chat talking about what's going on with the linebacking core. And once again, I've said it from the beginning that Mack Wilson is a liability in the passing game. Dylan's playing well. But
we're waiting on the quote from Nick about Dylan's health. By the way, he obviously went back in the game, but you never know. So I'm keeping an eye out for that. If I look like I'm not paying attention.
All right. So yeah, just let us know whenever he releases that. But yeah, the linebacking play has definitely been an issue for them this year. I would imagine that if we charted it, I would imagine a very high percentage of completed passes would be on either crossing routes that our linebackers are responsible for, or seam routes that linebackers aren't carrying, or any of the number of those. The touchdown today that they threw to the tight end, that was Mack Wilson running with the corner. He ran with the corner route, and the seam runs right behind him, touchdown.
Yeah, and just real quick, the basic zone responsibility. And again, this is from our perspective. So this isn't – we're not in the huddle. We don't know the play call. We don't know how diverse.
I'm just going off of basically what I know.
Mac, switch the responsibility to somebody else. But the basic principles of zone coverage dictate that the throw that is the most immediate threat is the one that you lean towards if there are multiple threats. So if you're a linebacker and you've got a seam route and you've got a corner route, the shortest throw, the most immediate threat, is that seam route because it is a shorter distance for that quarterback. And that's obviously what was wide open on that early first half touchdown for A&M. So not sure exactly what the call was, but it looked like zone for the rest of that side of the field. And in that case, it looked like there was a vacated zone by Mack Wilson, which has been a bit of a problem for both linebackers. I think the zone drops, the depths, who to reroute have all become a part of the issue. But what we did see, we saw a bit of a change. We saw Tosh Lupoy in the second half. It looked like more man principles. First of all, he was more aggressive as a play caller, which is something we talked about going into the game. We thought he would be very aggressive with the defense. So once you do that, more man coverage. But Dylan Moses was doing a lot more of the rushing early on. And then it flipped. In the second half, Mack Wilson became more of that guy where Dylan Moses had a little bit more of that coverage responsibility one-on-one with both running backs and tight ends, which did include the play in which he got banged up. That was great coverage, by the way. That was one of the better plays the linebackers made in space. They both missed tackles in space as well. Mack Wilson on the Kellen Mond long touchdown or long run. It wasn't a touchdown. And then Dylan Moses in the second half on the Kellen Mond touchdown. Both he and Deontay Thompson took poor angles. They went inside and out when the defense would have benefited more if they came outside in, especially against an elusive guy like Kellen Mond. The help was on the interior there. They went the other way, so Kellen almost went in untouched. So certainly some concerns with those guys and that unit as a whole. And before that play, Dylan Moses wasn't even set. So is the communication that is coming from the coaching staff to Mack Wilson Where's the break? Is it coaches to Mac or Mac to the rest of the defense? I'm not sure. A&M wasn't going that fast. Jimbo Fisher's not much of a tempo guy. So I'm not sure where the communication break was, but when the ball was snapped on that final touchdown A&M scored, Dylan Moses was not yet set and was looking towards the sideline. So the communication, I think, is still something that the crew is working on at Alabama. So there's mental situations, there's physical situations beyond what's very easy to see. Look, both guys made plays. Mac Wilson, super acrobatic interception. Again, we're not taking away from anything good that went down, but when you're talking about giving up the most points you have all year and some glaring holes when it comes to spying the quarterback and getting into the zone drops, it's something that needs to be talked about just a little bit more. So that's something that has become a bit of a consistency with this team thus far. And I think just like we talked about with Tua needing to get reps, I mean, these guys need to get reps too. It's still very early in their own, starting careers. And for Mac Wilson, it's still early in his, hey, I'm the communications guy career. And for Dylan, obviously, playing off of that. So you hope Dylan's okay, first of all. Still waiting on that word. I'm assuming since it hasn't come up yet that it's not a serious injury. So that's good news. But
it looked bad. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, it looked – I mean, that what is that wall doing so close? You know, I was there at Bryant-Denny for the state championships at the high school level last year, and it was snowing. It was kind of a crazy day, and kids were slipping coming onto the field, and they come onto the field right there by that wall, and one kid slipped and kind of rolled into the wall a little bit. He was fine, but it was like, why is that kind of crooked part so close to the playing field? And today, not only Dylan Moses, but a poor security guard looked like his knee exploded. So yeah, that was kind of a weird situation, but it was one of the best plays of the day from Dylan Moses. Man coverage against a tight end, back pylon, and he's hip to hip, making a play on the ball. I mean, that's the athleticism from Dylan. You saw it one-on-one with running backs in the hole. You saw it in coverage a little bit, but the mental lapses, the miscommunication, and then losing contain on Kellen Mond, which going into the game, this is the guy who can hurt you. That has to be concerning regardless of the positive, because that's something that's going to pop up again. Because when people think they can beat Alabama, what's the formula? Spread offense, mobile quarterback. And again, that shows a little bit more tangible, yes, this is something that can still bother Alabama, even with these new players, even in this new era, even under a new defensive coordinator. So
yeah, definitely. I think it definitely got exposed today. I mean, Mon had a ton of rushing yards.
Yeah.
And then the next one, kind of the next point I wanted to cover was the emergence of Isaiah Buggs, who
good for him.
We hadn't really heard much from Buggs this year, and we were kind of waiting on the Buggs, Raekwon, those guys to kind of emerge, because we've all known so far this year Quentin Williams has been performing, out of his mind, as you would say, but we really kind of have been waiting on the supporting cast: Raekwon, Isaiah, Anthony Jennings, Christian Miller. Like, we've been waiting on those guys to have big games, and I think Jennings had his best game today. He looked a lot better today than he has in past games. And then obviously Buggs, I mean, he had a nice handful of tackles to go along with, I think, 3 or 4 sacks. So definitely good to see those guys get going.
Yeah, that's what you want. You want each game to kind of be another opportunity to shine a new light on another player. I think a lot of people saw what makes Patrick Surtain such a highly touted guy today, playing so well in the back end. Savion Smith was still taking a bunch of risks, but they pay off too. So I think him playing a little bit more on the short corner is going to be advantageous for Alabama. Trevon Diggs is kind of the guy you can move around more, as well as Shaheem Carter. You could see them both inside and out. Shaheem Carter, you'll see deep well. nickel and dime situation. So I thought the secondary played well, especially against the pass, obviously. Look, Kellen Mond threw for 300 yards in the second half against Clemson and came nowhere near that in the entire game for against Alabama. So maybe that Clemson secondary is something that needs to be questioned a little bit. But Bama at the back end, I thought, played pretty well today.
Yeah, I think the front end of that Clemson defense is able to hide the back end of that Clemson defense.
Agree. I think we all kind of just assumed, hey, they're so good on defense in general because there are 4 NFL guys that the back 7 was kind of like, okay, well, they'll be good enough because they're recruiting well, and you can't always assume that. That's kind of a lazy take on our part. But they lost some glue guys in that secondary and at linebacker. That Dorian O'Daniel and Ben Bulwer before that. I mean, these guys might not be Pro Bowlers in the NFL or may not even play a bunch in the NFL. But in that defense, which uses a lot of hybrid positions, those guys were excellent. And those guys really masked some of the things going down at the back end. That Dorian O'Daniel used to cover tight ends and slot receivers on his own. It was unbelievable. You lose a guy like that, and all of a sudden you get exposed a little bit more. So that's just, something interesting with Clemson. But with Alabama, again, the secondary played pretty well. Xavier McKinney, excellent game. Him and Deontay Thompson keep looking like, maybe the best duo at safety in college football early on. It's still only a month in, but those guys can both support the run. They can both play the pass. They're both physical and aggressive, which is what you want. I'd like to see more man coverage from those guys. I think that would enable Alabama to be even more aggressive on defense with the edge rushers, with blitzing defensive backs, even the linebackers. I think all of that benefits Alabama. So that means the linebackers and the safeties got to hold up a little bit more one-on-one. Not sure how much Tosh trusts all of those guys one-on-one just yet. I think the corners are ahead of the pace we thought, but the linebackers and safeties in terms of one-on-one coverage, not zone, are well behind that pace. The safeties have been fine in zone coverage. And we talked about the linebackers a little bit behind the 8 ball in zone coverage from where we sit. And again, this is following another live look. We haven't gone back and watched the tape, anything like that. A couple of quotes coming in from Nick Saban. This is via Charlie Potter and Aaron Suttles, who are obviously there in Tuscaloosa. Nick wasn't happy about the finish, and that has to go into some of the things that some of our listeners are mad about in terms of not controlling the football with the running game at the end of the game, and playing a little sloppily, allowing a late touchdown, penalties, and things like that. Very typical of Nick Saban. But that aggression on defense is something that he did like and that was calculated, as a lot of people anticipated. So that was good there. And of course, on the other side of it with the offense, reporters are asking him, hey, is this the best and most explosive unit you've had? And you knew Nick was not going to confirm that. So
no, that's another one of those. He's not going to do it.
He of course did not confirm that. He said he's not ready to say whether or not this Alabama offense is the most explosive. Certainly through the air, it absolutely is, and it's not very close.
Yeah. So I wanted to take a look around the country real quick as far as what happened earlier and what's going on at the moment. You had I missed on the Georgia Missouri upset, so I was a little upset about that.
They did cover though. They
covered. Vegas is doing some crazy things right now as far as spreads and all that. They did cover. I thought they were gonna play better and pull that out, but
too many turnovers. Ridiculous.
The Notre Dame Wake Forest, that everybody said Wake Forest was going to be a Notre Dame was on upset alert. No.
The new quarterback, by the way.
New quarterback. He had 5 total touchdowns today, I think. 2 through the air, 3 on the ground. My Heisman pick is still looking good. Greer threw for 356 and 5 more touchdowns. So this group of quarterbacks that's at the top right now in the country is, it's getting kind of gaudy with the numbers. You've had Greer and Haskins both throw for 5 touchdowns in multiple games this year. Murray's thrown a ton of touchdowns. Tua's thrown a ton of touchdowns, but then there's like a big drop off after that top group of quarterbacks.
We'll see Justin Herbert against Stanford tonight. He's got a chance to
get
in the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And then, guys, are people ready to jump off the Scott Frost bus yet? Like,
he's not getting as much heat as Willie, that's for sure.
Yeah, I get that, but just because I think Florida State has looked worse in their losses than Nebraska has looked in their losses, even though today they looked pretty damn bad.
Yeah, Scott Frost is 0-3, Willie Taggart's 2-2 also.
Yeah, so shout out Willie Taggart for getting a W today.
Yeah, good for FSU. That's one of the surprises of the year already. So good.
Yeah, definitely.
And hey, the ACC got a win. It wasn't a conference win, but they got a win. Wasn't a win, but they got a win.
Yeah. So right now we got the Texas TCU game going right now, and I think that's kind of going opposite way of what most people thought it was going to go. That's Texas is 31-16 over TCU at the moment.
That's a shocker.
Yeah, I didn't see that. And Army's hanging in there with Oklahoma. Good for them.
Triple option, man. Tough
Triple option. That's if you've never had to play defense or / play a team that runs the triple option, then count your blessings.
Ugh.
Because we played a team in college that ran nothing but the triple option.
Worst. It's the worst.
And as an offensive player, it was absolutely awful to have to watch my defense try and defend that. And then for our defense, I can only imagine.
Yeah, cut blocks all day long, knees getting chopped down like trees without much effort. Mississippi State, Kentucky 0-0, by the way.
Yeah.
Second, so defense is doing well there. Let me check.
And then my first coaching job was coaching a team that ran triple option, and I had no clue what was going on.
Yeah, Florida 14-3 over Tennessee, by the way.
Oh, come on, Tennessee.
Battle of the weirder oranges.
Yeah. Okay, let me pose that question. For Bama fans in that situation, who would you rather see win, Florida or Tennessee? Hit us up in the.
Oh, you know what they're gonna
hit that up in the live chat comments, because I want to know, because I just for my own.
Tennessee dropped an onside kick down 14-3, and it looks like Florida recovered. They're reviewing it, so good luck to Jeremy Pruitt there. That's that talent or lack of.
That's a tough job, man. Yeah. So for that whole thing, like I give Pruitt credit, because nobody in the country wanted that job.
And none of their fans didn't let anyone else get it.
And the fans wouldn't let the administration hire anybody.
So weird.
They shut down the Craig Schiano hire, and then after that, nobody would touch it with a 10-foot pole. And you would hear, oh, so and so's close to a deal with Tennessee, and then that person would come out and be like, I'm not taking the Tennessee job. And they went through probably 10 or 15 guys before they got Pruitt.
Yeah, a bunch of reported interviews, a bunch of movement with that coaching search. We just asked this in the chat. What's the biggest concern through 4 games? I know there's a lot of great things to jump in on, with Alabama in 2018. But where are you on the other side of that question? Where are the bigger concerns? Is it the quarterback situation? Is that something that you're worried about more than we're talking about, or more than we're worried about? Is it still the secondary? Is it the linebackers? Is it a position group? Is it a player? Is it something off the field? Is it the weak schedule going forward, and how that may negatively affect the team before November, when you get LSU, Auburn, Mississippi State, Cupcake, and obviously, or in theory, an SEC East champion, which will probably be Georgia. I mean, the SEC East is a little down, even compared to where we might have thought it was coming into the season. Zoo Train chimes in and says, "I really don't like the offensive line blocking scheme. We have the talent, but they need to simplify it." Yeah, Zoo, when you're running read option, and if there is an RPO built off of that, you have to play it sort of straight up, because the offensive line doesn't know if it's a run or a pass. So you can't have a sophisticated run scheme on those type of plays, meaning you're not going to have guards and centers pulling. You're not going to have extended kickouts or anything like that, because if it's a passing play, obviously that would leave a big vulnerability if that quarterback pulls the ball down and looks to fire the football very quickly. So the schemes are going to be more vanilla in those situations. It is one of the weaknesses of that type of scheme. Now, every time Bama is in that set, it's not an RPO. That's not every time. I think broadcasters have been RPO happy, and they're saying it every time just to feel smart and look smart. But that is not exactly the case. But when you are running RPOs, which for Alabama is not the bulk of the time, but a lot of those times those are simple handoffs, and they appear as simple handoffs. A lot of the time the line really can't do much in terms of sophistication because of the nature of the RPO. It is on the quarterback there to make that read. So again, we talk about Tua needing reps. His passing decision making has been solid, but ball handling in this era of the spread, ball handling and decision making for the running game and the protection with the offensive line is also a part of evaluating a quarterback. So I think there's another area where not only does Tua need to improve, but he needs the experience. He hasn't had a bunch of it in this set. So I think that's something to keep in mind as well, in terms of why it has looked like, hey, the offensive line is blocking very straight up, and the runners are coming very, on the interior, very up the middle, very, very vanilla. I think that's part of it as well. Some of those plays maybe would dictate, hey, more of a passing game here, more of a passing look here, because it didn't look like A&M was very sophisticated with the pass defense, and it was a vulnerability, and perhaps that's why it looked simplified and obviously easy to process for Tua. So the run-pass balance wasn't great in this game, but maybe it should have been even more pass-heavy based off of some of those looks and the strength of that A&M front four in particular. Timothy Grant, again, questioning the running game. Missed assignments on defense. I think with the linebackers, it's another situation with the reps. I think that is something that needs to improve and increase, which will obviously take care of itself, I should say, as long as these guys are healthy. Look, there was question about Matt Wilson's health going into the last game. There was a phantom foot injury. Was it broken? What was going on? We didn't really know. And then with Dylan Moses, he got banged up in this game, so you don't really know how that will affect things going forward. So, I think that's something that could potentially have factored in, but on the basic assignments. And look, sometimes it's very simple. There are missed tackles on this team, and guys who have been missing some tackles consistently, aside from the D-line, who, you give them a bit of a pass if they're in the open field with a Kellen Mond. Certainly, Mac Wilson has missed tackles on running backs. Dylan Moses missed Mond a couple of times today. Deontay Thompson as well. Those are your interior guys. When you get past the line, sometimes it's very simple. When you get past the line of scrimmage and past that D-line, The secondary and the linebackers are there. The back seven is there. And in the middle, those three guys have to be more consistent tacklers on routine plays. I think Deontay Thompson needs to break down, play contain a little bit better. Same thing for Mac Wilson. Dylan Moses was inside out on the one Mond touchdown. That's not something we usually see from him. And he's also very used to trusting his speed, which is part of the reason why Texas A&M's ground game never really got going outside of Kellen Mond. And another part of that is not all of those runs were design runs for Kellen. Some of those were improvisation, and that's something that Jimbo Fisher spoke to the CBS broadcast crew about at halftime, that he was trying to manufacture field position, yardage, and first downs on his own with his legs. So some of those apparent missed assignments, whether it was Wilson being unable to get off of a block, which has become a bit of a consistent issue for him, appearing to be the spy and being in the wrong place. Some of those may not have been as apparent as we thought, or as we have just seen watching it live. So again, this is why we're doing this live, and immediately after the game, when we go look back, we can kind of make our own corrections based off of our own opinions. Let's go to some more of the answers here in the chat. One of them, Timothy Grant is concerned about the run game, missed assignments on defense. LeVar 22 says, we also need another pass rusher to step up and help Miller and Jennings, which is something that I tend to agree on. Miller and Jennings have looked much better of late, but it's not necessarily consistent. I thought you saw more aggression, which would open the doors up for everybody today. You saw that in the second half. I think you'll see more of that in the future. But, you saw Yabi Anoma get what looked like a sack, but it ended up being a horse collar. You're seeing some other guys coming in, Mac Wilson, Dylan Moses, helping out in rushing the passer as well. So I do agree there needs to be a more consistent pass rush from a, one-person perspective. But Tosh Lupoy, I almost said Jeremy Pruitt. Tosh Lupoy is going to continue to blitz and play aggressive. So I think that's something that will help the overall pass rush. But you saw the interior guys continue to rush the passer well. Quinnen Williams has been great. Isaiah Buggs stepped up today. Raekwon Davis has been serviceable, maybe a little under expectations, but serviceable. With those guys being good to great is good enough right now. So the Alabama defensive interior on that line has been very, very good. Kev, we're asking about some of the top concerns, and we're hearing a lot of the same: running game, pass rush, linebackers, and Elijah Ford just jumped in and said, think to get Tua off better. Don't put the game all in his hands. Again, I think that's something that was a bit of an anomaly today. I don't think that type of ratio is something we will continue to see from Alabama. Any new thoughts, any new points there, Kev? As Florida scores again, by the way, 23-3. It's a blowout all of a sudden, and at Neyland Stadium, by the way.
Is Florida back?
No.
I knew the answer to that question. I just wanted to.
No, I mean that'd be a big win for them, though. Young team, a lot of talent, and they need guys to buy in, man. Florida needs guys to buy in. They've got players on both sides of the ball, but just the talent discrepancy between Florida and Tennessee is actually a big one. So I expect Florida to win this game, but I don't expect a blowout. So we'll see how Jeremy Pruitt and company adjust.
Yeah. So who? So for what we said run game and linebacker play for the concerns. Yeah, I agree with that. Linebacker play definitely. Run game. I don't know if I was necessarily. I'm not ready to say the run game's not good. I mean, Najee had 100 yards. Ole Miss, no, Arkansas State. But I mean, I'm not ready to say the run game's not good, but it is concerning to not see the big run plays from Alabama like we're used to seeing, the big the big hitters. I mean, we had a couple long runs today. Damian had a long run, and well, maybe that was the only long run, but Najee had some tough yards.
Yeah, Najee had a 19-yarder. Damian hit a 35-yarder in terms of the long.
Yeah.
But again, just not as many carries.
Yeah, I mean, we're used to – and also, like, the rotation used to not be – there used to not be 3 and 4 guys you're giving touches to. I mean, Alabama's used to – they're used to rotating, but it would be like 2. It would be, you'd have Bo and then you'd have Damian, or you'd have, it wasn't – they weren't giving as many people touches. Now they're giving, 4 running backs touches.
Right. And this stat is telling. Of the 3 main backs, so Damian Harris, Najee Harris, Josh Jacobs, only 2 of them have hit double digits in carries in any one game, and it was the same game. Najee Harris had 13 carries against Arkansas State, and Damian Harris had 12 carries against Arkansas State. In the other 3 games, each of them have been in single digits in terms of carries. Josh Jacobs hasn't had more than 6 in a game. Damian Harris hasn't had more than 7 outside of Arkansas State, and Najee Harris hasn't had more than 9 outside of Arkansas State. So I think there's a rhythm question popping up. And Kev, a minute ago, I was talking about RPOs, and I was talking about how people are obsessed with talking about it. But Alabama does run some of them, but I was explaining, and you're going to be better at explaining this, when you have RPO called, okay, people are wondering, why does the running game look so vanilla? Why does it look so stock? And I think a small part of that is that when you're running an RPO, you can't have guys pulling and kicking out, because if the quarterback pulls it, you need straight up blocking for pass protection. So you can't really – you're relying on the quarterback's decision-making more than anything with the RPO, but that means the offensive line scheme is going to be more vanilla, basic zone scheme based on the protection. Am I right there?
Yes, absolutely. So that goes back to what everybody's talking about with the offensive line and the run scheme, and they don't like the run scheme. All right, well, so you might not like the run scheme, but that's how the run scheme is going to look when you're building in RPOs off of your run game, because like John said, you can't get too fancy with your blocking scheme when you're running RPOs, only because you still need to be able to throw the ball off of the run motion. Yep. So a lot of teams will run inside zone, which we've seen a lot of inside zone. They're going to run a lot of pull.
That inside zone is when you see a quarterback doing a read option and it's a running play, 9 times out of 10, it's inside zone.
Inside zone, yeah. Read option is built off of inside zone. You just don't block the end man on the line of scrimmage, and the quarterback reads it. RPO, now you're not reading the end man on the line of scrimmage. You're reading the second level, and you're reading the linebacker. Yeah. So instead of reading that defensive end, he's now reading the linebacker. If linebacker comes forward, he's going to pull it, throw probably big combo for RPO is inside zone and a slant by your inside receiver. So you're reading your linebacker steps up, throw the slant. Linebacker stays back, give it to the running back. That's why you're seeing a lot of vanilla blocking up front, is because it's built, a lot of RPO stuff is built into this offense. Now, not everything is RPO. Like, I swear to God, I hate hearing Herb Street call a game and being like, look at the RPO. Like, that was play action, bro.
Well,
like,
the guy that thought Jawan Pass was amazing against Alabama. He has since
been
benched by Louisville, who still lost to Virginia today.
He took my Mike Loxley content that I still want credit for. But a lot of that vanilla blocking has to do with the RPO game. Right. And it's just the nature of the beast that college football has gotten into.
especially with Tua. I mean, you gotta.
Oh yeah, I mean he's probably he's probably the best at running an RPO scheme offense right now in the country because he gets through his progression so fast.
Right, and he's got a trigger and he's accurate. And this is the thing.
His trigger is very quick. He's very accurate, and he makes quick decisions. So when he's got that inside read, he's got that inside zone run, he sees that linebacker, boom, pull it, throw. Easy money.
Right, and this is the thing. You know, you can't have it both ways. Okay, so the classic Bama fan wants I formation, downhill, 2 tight ends, but you're setting up looks with Tua. With Tua in the game, you're going to be in the gun, or we saw a little bit of pistol today with some offset with a fullback.
Talk about
right. So
start running that.
Right, but my point is he's not going to be under center, and you're not going to have a bunch of tight ends in the game because the threat of Tua, even pre-snap, is a vertical threat. So you want
as you're saying this, we need to go under center more.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. You can't have.
It's not gonna happen.
If you want more outside powers, power toss, spread toss, all these things that we've seen Alabama play successfully, counters. You need a fullback, you need a tight end, and the less guys you have in a confined space, the less Tua is a threat pre-snap, and everything going forward is going to have to do with that threat of Tua pre-snap. So I would be surprised if you see Tua under center more than a few times a game because like we said when we were talking about the quarterback battle, when Tua comes out of that huddle and walks to the line, it is a different feel as a defense.
Yeah.
So you're going to be a little more hesitant to move forward. You're going to be more inclined to play back, to sit back on your heels to prepare for the passing game. So RPOs and the direction of this offense is based off of that. So, look, me and Kev are fans of the old school. We love power running games. We love what Wisconsin does. We love what most of the LSU teams do in terms of running the football. But if you're an Alabama fan, you have to start getting that out of your mind because with Tua, you're not going to see that. Mike Locksley doesn't specialize in that either. He is also a spread guy. So not only is he normally spread, but now you've got the ultimate spread weapon with Tua, and you want to build his running threat as well. So you want to build the threat that, hey, he can also pull the ball and use his legs. So all of that stuff is predicated on more wide receivers, less tight ends, less fullbacks, less guys in the backfield, which is going to pull you back from under the center to more of a pistol shotgun look, which is obviously what you're seeing most consistently from Alabama. Christopher McDonald asking a good question. Do you think Alex Leatherwood is playing out of position? Look, the kid played tackle his whole life. And even last year, he was a tackle. He obviously came in for Jonah Williams in the national championship game. Everybody remembers that. And for the bulk of camp, or for the bulk of spring, I should say, and camp following Matt Womack's injury at right tackle, that's the spot where we initially saw Leatherwood. So you're talking about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years of left and right tackle. And now, because of the consistency of Jedrick Wills, you're seeing him kick inside to playing guard. So I'm sure he is still transitioning. There's certain things that translate no matter where you are, like run blocking, and he's been rock solid as a run blocker. But when it comes to pass protection, playing guard versus playing tackle is almost night and day. Think about playing guard. You have guys on either side of you. Your splits are smaller. You have less freedom and flexibility. You're in that proverbial phone booth that we hear a lot of analysts speaking of. And at tackle, it's like free range, wide open. It's built for basketball. You can mirror a guy coming off of the edge. You're dealing with different players on defense. So I think all of these things factor into the toughness that it takes to transition from tackle to guard. But with Jedrick Wills playing so well, you're caught. You're not going to move Jonah, and Wills is playing well at tackle. So how do you combat that? You got to get your 5 best linemen on the field. It's what we've talked about since that national championship. And there's no doubt that Alex Leatherwood is one of the top 5 linemen on the roster, probably top 2 or 3. Kevin, guard versus tackle. Is Leatherwood out of position? Is he still transitioning? Does it look like it to you? I thought once again the run blocking was pretty darn good from him, but we've had some pass blocking questions with him as well.
As far as Leatherwood, I think he's still transitioning to the guard position. I don't think he's going to be a guard long term. I think, like you said, he is a part of the 5 best up front, and when you have the amount of guys that they have up front that are quality players, and you have to put your 5 best on the field, I agree he is one of the 5 best, if not 1 or 2, well, 2 or 3. I think it's a consensus on who number 1 is at the moment. But I definitely think he's in the conversation for top 2, top 3. And I don't think he stays at guard. I eventually think he moves back out to tackle. But for this year, he's in the top 5. You have to find a way to get him on the field, and that was putting him at right guard. Now, Jedrick Wills has shown why he is at right tackle, and I think that eventually Leatherwood does transition back to a tackle, which he was in high school. But I think he's still developing as a guard, and I could be wrong. He could stay at guard, but I mean he's definitely got the build for a guard. But I think he does move. I think he does move back to tackle eventually in this defense, or in the offense. And I would speculate, just based on my opinion, that he's going to be Jonah's replacement if Jonah decides to leave early.
When I think Jonah decides to leave early?
Well, who knows? I mean, we all know Jonah is a different kind of guy. He doesn't, he's not going to talk on that ever, probably. But I do think Jonah leaves early, and I think that I think Leatherwood is going to be his replacement at left tackle.
A couple more quotes from Nick Saban, by the way, on Patrick Surtain. Quote, "We liked him because he's big and they have big receivers. I've been pleased with his progress. I've been pleased with his performance." Did say that there were mistakes by the secondary at the end of the game, which we've kind of touched on a little bit. And then in closing, quote, Saban says, quote, "We've got a good team, but our team needs to do a lot of things to improve." You got the in the post game. So you knew Nick was going to be mad at something.
Yeah.
He did admit one thing about this team was different than every other one. Quote, "We may throw it as well as we ever have, but," and here's where Nick really looks like Nick, "but that's not all there is to it." So again, there's a lot of momentum with this passing game. There's a lot of momentum with what Alabama's doing. And I think, again, it goes to what we talked about at the beginning, Kev. This was part of the design today. It felt like this was a big part of the game plan.
Yeah,
Exposing that A&M secondary, staying away from that front four.
Yeah, definitely. It was I think definitely the game plan was to attack the secondary. I think that's why you didn't see much out of the run game. And we saw Tua throw the ball all over the place. He distributed the ball well. A lot of different receivers catching the ball. And I think, like you said, I think it was just part of the game plan. And I think that's going to, moving forward, a lot of, I think some people have said, do you think Timothy Grant said, do you think a lack of use of the run game will affect the execution when it's needed consistently? And I don't necessarily think it will. I just think that when it's time to run consistently, you're going to see a lot less RPO and a lot less design and a lot more designed run. Because a lot of the stuff they ran today, run wise, was built off the RPO stuff.
Yeah, so. That's true. No, I think it's early for that.
And guys, we're not bad. They're not bad.
Nobody's going to prepare for Bama Nobody's going to prepare for Bama and not prepare for the running game, not prepare for Damian Harris coming off of 2 1,000-yard season, not prepare for Najee Harris, former number 1 recruit in the country. Josh Jacobs isn't sleeping. Nobody's sleeping on Josh Jacobs anymore. That's these guys get paid millions nowadays, the coordinators. So they're not going into a Bama game saying, "Hey, we just got to stop Tua and we'll win the game." That will never happen.
Yeah.
So I don't think Bama's there yet. Look, again, I think we talked about some of the issues with the running game. New line, new communication, new ball handler in Tua Tagovailoa, which, like Kevin said, he is perfectly built to handle RPO situations, especially the throws coming off of it, but still inexperienced and executing it from a running perspective. He kept a few today, and it looked pretty good. But in terms of when to keep it, when to give it, when to throw it, all of those reps are going to be valuable, not only for him, but for the offensive line. He's still trying to figure out this offensive line as well. Quarterback to O-line relationship, much more important than a lot of people realize. So I think that's part of the perception as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to be. I think a lot of the Bama fans need to let go of the power run game type of offense, because it's not going to be. This offense isn't going to be that. It's not. It's going to be a more traditional spread type offense. I mean,
what's funny, real quick.
Yeah.
I was in Auburn this weekend. I went to 2 high school games, one in Montgomery, one in Oxford, and Auburn's in between. So I was in Auburn. I actually enjoy Auburn, so be mad. It's funny. In Auburn, I didn't ask the Rashawn Evans, Reuben Foster question. I forgot. But I always want to get the pulse of a fan base if I'm in a college town. And I was in Auburn, and you know what the Auburn fans are mad about? They're mad about Alabama looking so great with a finesse game, throwing the football all over the yard. They think they can do that with Jared Stidham and those receivers, which I actually agree. I think they have that type of talent. But Gus Malzahn and the traditional Auburn fan is like, no, Auburn is a power spread team. So it's almost one of these where it's almost like you're going to want what you don't have. So Auburn fans, after losing to LSU, giving up that lead, they want to say, blow it up, let's go wide open, let's throw the ball all over the yard. Well, that's not who Gus Malzahn is. So now Bama fans are like, no, power football, we want to be aggressive, old school Bama. That's not who Mike Locksley is. That's not what this personnel is going to dictate. Yeah, maybe the running backs are built for that, but the offensive line, the quarterback, certainly the wide receivers are not. And I don't think you have a great argument for taking any one of these top 3 receivers off the field. How could you? Jerry Jeudy catches a touchdown like every other catch he makes.
Yeah.
We saw what Henry Ruggs can do in the open field. Devontae Smith loves running the 9 route and is the smoothest cat in the country at wide receiver. All 3 of those guys probably run 4.4. How can you take one of those guys off the field when you have the best trigger man that the university has ever had in terms of pure talent? It's a catch-22. You can't have it both ways. So the way to blend it best is to spread it out, focus on the read option, some RPO game in there, a lot of inside zone, and even if it doesn't look good, consider what Kevin said. That's part of the building block as well. You saw some orbit motion today. You saw some triple option today. You saw some tunnel screens today. All of that is predicated on defenses moving up and defenses focusing on the running backs. So as that focus continues and begins to change from the defenses who start to sit back a little bit more, the running game opens up. Some of those wide plays open up as well. We really haven't seen Mike Locksley attack teams wide just yet. And today, Bama got wide whenever it wanted to. So I think that's something he's keeping in his back pocket in terms of the run game as well.
Yeah, most definitely. It's definitely there, but they're, like I said, they're building for the rest of the year. Still early in the year. I would imagine he doesn't. There's not. They're right now. What? They're probably 85% of the playbook in right now. So, you're gonna be building on this stuff for the rest of the year, and it's just you're gonna see more. You're gonna see more of the stuff that you saw. You're gonna see more of the the orbit, the tunnel screen, the option type stuff. and that's where that's where it's building with this Loxley offense. And so I think that it's times are changing.
Yeah. And look, and we're on your side. We love the old school, man.
I love the old school run game. I love it more than anything in the world. I was I was a hog for my entire life. That's what I was about. But then again, I always also wanted to play in a true spread offense because sometimes run blocking isn't as fun, and getting your face pounded in every play just isn't that great. But
yeah, real quick, 7-7 Kentucky Mississippi State near the half. That one, we told you to take the under. We told you.
So, but hey, I'm gonna leave you for a minute. I'll be back, but I gotta leave you for a minute.
Yeah, we're gonna wrap up here very, very shortly. I'll stay on with you guys just a little bit more as we say bye, and thank you to producer Kev there. Bye, buddy. RIP the power run game.
Yeah. RIP.
You'll be all right.
All right.
But yeah, it's just look. I mean, it's just how the game has progressed, and again, the personnel is dictating that more for Alabama. And guess what, guys? How Alabama is recruiting, it's going to continue to dictate in that direction. So might be unfortunate for some, but that's the reality of where things are today. Maybe they'll change. And again, it doesn't mean you can't emphasize the running game. We just talked about Auburn. Auburn does it so well. They line up visually similar to Alabama in terms of personnel. 2 and 3 receiver sets. They do use the tight end a little bit more, but they spread you out to run the ball. They spread you out to minimize the box. Alabama did a lot of that last year and has done that in years past, particularly with Jalen Hurts at the helm. But with Tua, you're just not going to do that as much. That's why we've seen the reps go down for the running backs, especially with that 3-man rotation instead of the usual 2. So all of these things do factor in. And again, the offensive line needing some more time to gel is an underrated aspect of the perceived inconsistency as well. There will be more balance moving forward. Christopher McDonald, I agree with you. There will be more balance going forward. I think today's game plan felt like it wanted to go away from that a little bit, but I think moving forward it'll be much closer to 50-50 or 60-40, which is really the most consistent number we see from spread offenses. So that'll be part of it as well. Sense of Tumor is pulling hard for Kentucky. You're probably not alone. I think a lot of people are, especially the gamblers out there. But that looks like it'll be maybe the game of the day after all. Certainly the game of the day in the SEC. Low scoring defense. I'm a fan. We're talking about all this spread stuff. Give me low scoring and defense every day of the week there. So we'll let you get back to some of these evening games. Again, we just wanted to jump on and talk a little bit about our initial reactions. I mean, fresh off of the game as Alabama defeats Texas A&M 45-23 and continues to roll. At the end of the day, Alabama undefeated, untested, and the undisputed number 1 team in America. So all things considered, pretty healthy, by the way. Hadn't seen much on Dylan Moses, so I'm assuming he's good to go. So you're about at the level where you could have hoped to be at this point as an Alabama fan. So enjoy it, and we'll see how things change in the near future. Otherwise, hit BamaOnline.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. We'll be back with the show in the coming days. Not sure exactly when, but we're always willing to chat on Twitter at CABC Pod, Facebook, Crimson and Blue Chips, Instagram at CABC Pod, and obviously right here on YouTube. Thanks for joining, everybody. Please subscribe and stay with us. We got a lot of content coming your way. It's just the beginning. So thanks, everybody. We'll see you here in a couple of days. Enjoy the weekend. God bless. Garcia out.